Buenos dias! Welcome back to the 2021 United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Virtual Legislative Summit. Our program today will focus on building back America through Hispanic businesses and unlocking access to capital and corporate America's supply chain. We will hear from National Initiative advocacy partners at the National Museum of the American Latino, Chairwoman Lily Gil Valletta, and representing Proyecto 20%, Unidos U.S. President and CEO, Janet Murguia. Also, offering an important presentation about Hispanic data in America from the Pew Research Center, Mark Hugo Lopez. The USHCC is honored to hear from the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas. We'll also welcome key members of Congress, including Senator Ben Cardin, Senator Catherine Cortes Masto, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and Congressman Anthony Gonzalez. And we'll conclude our program with remarks from the 49th Vice President of the United States of America, the Honorable Kamala Harris. But before we begin today's program, let us welcome from our USHCC Board of Directors, Legislative Summit co-chairs, Jackie Puente and Nelson Rainier.
Buenos dias. My name is Nelson Rainier, and I am the Senior Vice President for Sales and External Affairs at Liberty Power. I am proud to serve as Chair-elect of the Board of Directors for the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and to have the opportunity to work with a wonderful board and a team committed to supporting Hispanic-owned businesses. As a co-chair and presenting sponsor for the 2021 Legislative Summit, it is a pleasure to welcome you to our second day of this year's fantastic program. Yesterday was a tremendously important day for our chamber, as we heard from great speakers, including the President of the United States and the Secretary of the Treasury. Today, we look forward to another great program with a dynamic set of speakers as we continue our advocacy for what we like to call our 3 C's at the Chamber. First, increasing access to capital for Hispanic business enterprises, or HBEs. Secondly, expanding capacity for more than 200 chambers. And third, leveraging our connections with corporations and government agencies to increase procurement opportunities for those HBs. The USHCC has been working hard to engage policymakers on both sides of the aisle, from our endorsement of the American Recovery Plan to our support for comprehensive immigration reform. We have had our members and our leaders weigh in and be part of congressional hearings and testimonies and discussions that address the small business economy, issues of equity, and the Paycheck Protection program. Working for Hispanic-owned business, I greatly appreciate the Chamber's leadership in fighting for policies that support our entrepreneur and business owners. I also appreciate the Chamber's leadership in partnering with an increasing number of corporations that value us as customers, as employees, and as vendors. 2020 was a tough year for us, and sadly, our community was disproportionately affected by the events of last year. However, we remain strong, estamos unidos, in our spirit and united and prepared to meet these challenges to build a stronger and brighter future for our country. In this spirit, please join us to pause and reflect on the dear ones that have passed this past year and whose memory will always be with us. Thank you for joining us today. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you a fellow board member, my fellow co-chair of the summit, and a dear friend, Jackie Puente.
Thank you, Nelson. It's an honor and a privilege to co-chair the Legislative Summit with you and bring this program to life, sea to shining sea. And here I am in the other Washington. I'm Jackie Puente, Executive Director for External Affairs at Comcast, NBC Universal, and Telemundo, and I'm proud to serve on the board of the USHCC and chair the Government Affairs Committee. Comcast NBC Universal is proud to partner with the USHCC this year again as we identify programs and initiatives that are responsive to the needs of the Hispanic businesses and community during the global pandemic. We've banded together with leaders in our industry and diverse business sectors to identify opportunities for real-time solutions to the challenges we're all facing today. Whether we're working to close the digital divide by bringing customers and markets online for the first time, providing grants to entrepreneurs and startups that can respond to emerging trends with new products and services, or sharing technical assistance to businesses, including technology and advertising expertise. It's been a great time of uncertainty, and one thing is certain. There's an incredible team in place at the USHCC ready to handle any challenge that comes our way. On behalf of the board, I want to thank Ramiro Cavazos, President and CEO, and the entire staff for their creativity, dedication, and relentless pursuit of opportunity for the members of chambers and the HBEs that they represent in Washington, D.C., state houses, and in global trade. This team has also been acting to ensure that there's fair representation of Hispanics in this Biden administration. Later today, we'll hear from Janet Murguia, President and CEO of Unidos US, about broader collaboration with sister organizations to help achieve this and strengthen the voice of Hispanic business and community leaders in the policymaking process. As chair of the Government Affairs Committee, like my predecessor Nelson here, I want to raise awareness about the 2020-2021 policy platform that is a helpful, living, breathing document to highlight key policy positions and advocacy goals for this organization during the event and afterwards. With new faces and new ideas coming to life in Washington, D.C., this is a quick guide, a deep dive on policy issues that are essential for getting our economy on the path to more equitable and sustainable growth. Finally, it's my pleasure to share an important save the date for everyone watching today. Please join us for the annual convention happening this year, virtually, perhaps in person, perhaps we'll find out, September 26th through 28th. More details to come. Thank you for taking time to join us here today and enjoy the program. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Now, please welcome our corporate partner from AT&T, the Director of Federal Public Affairs, Celeste Carrasco.
I'm Celeste Carrasco from AT&T, and it's a pleasure for my company to have a part in the USHCC Legislative Summit. I'd like to take a moment to talk about one of AT&T's top priorities, broadband access. As you know, the COVID-19 pandemic has unfortunately exposed many problems, including that many students, especially students of color, lack home internet that they need for school. AT&T has taken a high profile in calling for federal action to spur infrastructure spending and policies that expand broadband so that it reaches all residences and businesses. Since 2016, we've invested more than $100 billion in our network to provide better, faster service nationwide. Since many of you here lead small businesses, you should know AT&T also supports supplier diversity. Last year, we spent $9 billion with minority businesses, probably including some of you here today. Our message to Congress is clear. It's in society's interest for our government to incentivize broadband investment that result in all families having the connectivity to work, learn, and communicate. Public subsidies, smart policies, market forces, and private companies should all work together, and AT&T will do its part to make universal broadband a reality. Again, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful conference. And now, we will hear from Lily Gil Valletta, the chair of Friends of the National Museum of the American Latino. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Lily Gil Valletta, and I'm coming to you, first of all, as a proud Hispanic business owner and member of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, but today I have an extra responsibility as the chairwoman of the Friends of the American Latino Museum. And as we are having our conference and our legislative summit, I wanted to encourage you all to learn more and get involved as we together as a community work to building and manifesting a Smithsonian American Latino Museum that this country will celebrate, because Latino history is American history. So you may be wondering, how can you help? And especially as it relates to the legislative front, we need to continue to advocate, because we have to secure the best location on the mall in Washington, D.C., ideally right across from our friends from the African American Museum, because we are embedded into the tapestry and the history of America for more than 500 years. And the second thing we need to advocate for is the appropriations. For those of you that are not from the DC circle, that is the budget. Those are the funds that we actually need to get the work going and properly fund these efforts within the Smithsonian organization, an institution that now is taking this great effort forward. So please get engaged. I invite you to visit our websites and follow the handle #Latino Museum Now and American Latino Museum. Search it, follow it, be part of it. And if you have influence in DC, don't forget, ask all your representatives to make sure we have the right location and we get the appropriations. So thank you so much, and let's keep on celebrating the great culture that we have and this great America that we're part of for over 500 years. Don't forget. So best of luck with your event, and thank you so much for having me.
The USHCC is proud to collaborate with a coalition of national organizations to ensure that adequate Latino representation is part of the political appointments process in the Biden-Harris administration. Let's hear more about Proyecto 20%.
Proyecto 20 is about more than being aspirational. In this moment of crisis, we need a government that is truly of the people and for the people, and one that will move us towards a country that serves all Americans and honors all of our contributions.
Leading the call to action for Proyecto 20%, please welcome USHCC National Partner, from Unidos US, their President and CEO, Janet Murguia.
Hello, I'm so pleased to join today on behalf of my organization, Unidos US, the largest national Hispanic civil rights and advocacy organization in the country. Since 1968, we've been advocating for and opening the door to greater opportunities for the Latino community. I want to give special thanks to your president and CEO, Ramiro Cavazos, not only for his continued partnership, but for his exceptional leadership. In his short time as CEO, he has already strengthened USHCC's role as one of the most important and respected organizations in the Hispanic community. I'm proud of what we have been able to accomplish when we've worked together. This past December, our organizations, along with some others in our community, fulfilled a decades-long goal to have a museum on the National Mall dedicated to the history and contributions of the Latino community when Congress finally gave authorization for the National Museum of the American Latino. Our story will finally be told in the nation's most important cultural institution, and we could not have done it without working together, without leveraging our collective voice. USHCC and Unidos US have also worked together on our mutual goal of greater diversity and inclusion, most notably working together with ACER, seeking to increase the number of Hispanics in corporate America. Currently, as you saw in the earlier video, we are also partners in Proyecto 20%, a coalition of national Latino organizations calling for equitable representation in the Biden-Harris administration. Hispanics deserve their place at the table, having come out in record numbers in the 2020 election to vote for change. As a result of years of hard work by many of our organizations, including Unidos US, we have worked hard to register and mobilize voters, Latino voters who have made a difference in the outcome of these elections, particularly in swing states like Arizona, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. And since we now have become the second largest ethnic voting bloc in the nation, we will be impacting elections for years to come. We've seen the fruits of our labor and our voice in the administration already. With the confirmation of Javier Becerra 2 weeks ago, we now have the largest number of first-term Latina cabinet members in US history. Secretary Becerra joined the already confirmed Miguel Cardona as Secretary of Education, Isabel Guzman, Small Business Administrator, and Alejandro Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security. This is a historic moment. It is an important milestone, but our community is still too often absent in decision-making positions across our federal government. The departments headed by our Latino cabinet members are all critically important, but so are the departments of Justice, Treasury, Labor, Agriculture, and Commerce. We need to see more Latinos and Latinas in positions of authority in those departments as well. Because as we have said often, our voice matters and representation matters. We saw that firsthand with the impact of the pandemic on Black and Latino small businesses. Unidos US conducted a poll last summer of small business owners with color of change. And we saw, and they told us that without assistance, half of them would have to close their doors within 6 months. And we also learned that only 12% of small business of color received assistance from the Paycheck Protection Program. Fast forward a year later, and thanks to our growing voice and clout, we were able to secure targeted funding for minority-owned small businesses in the just enacted American Rescue Plan Act. Not only was there an expansion of PPP, but there's now a $15 billion grant fund specifically for small businesses located in low-income communities. Our task now is to make sure that those funds get to the businesses in our community who need them. To help do that, Proyecto 20% is now focused on making sure that at least 800 of the 4,000 political appointments still to come, such as undersecretaries, deputies, policy advisors, and assistant secretaries, be held by qualified Latinos and Latinas. As members of the USHCC, you know there is no shortage of qualified and dedicated people in our community willing and eager to serve their country. And in the long term, we will be creating a pipeline of future leaders in politics, business, academia, and every other sector of our society. I'm so proud to continue our work together to ensure that we get that opportunity for all. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Janet, for those inspiring words as we collectively aim to evolve the professional identity of Latinos in America. Now, a few important messages from our Legislative Summit corporate partners.
I grew up in a place where I didn't know there were more options than what existed. I'm fourth generation Mexican-American, farm labor. My parents, they spent most of their lives in the fields. And then, of course, my grandparents spent their entire lives in the fields. How does the son or daughter of a migrant farm worker really become a computer programmer? In underdog cities across the United States, you have to have a place where you can point to and say, this is where you come. That's why we started Bitwise. We teach people to code, we buy blighted properties in our downtown, rehab them, and lease them back out to the technology industry, and then we build software and software companies. Our business is 100% powered by Google products. We use analytics to understand how people are interacting with us. We've seen traffic increase by 20%. We've added 2,000 tech jobs. That's families with groceries on the table, gas in the tank, but it's also hopefulness. What Bitwise can do best is set that new expectation that you can make this happen for you and your family for generations to come.
What's a citizen? It's believing in something and doing something about it, being responsible and following through on promises. We're a company of 135,000 citizens. And we have a plan to work toward a greater good, a better future to share, one that will move us all forward. Citizen Verizon, our plan for economic, environmental, and social advancement.
Since 1852, Latinos have been Wells Fargo customers and team members. Today, Latinos are powering U.S. economic growth, and our commitment to empowering this community is stronger than ever. You have a dream? We want to help. You have an idea? Let's get to work. Wells Fargo provides the resources and advocacy that helped create a level playing field for all. As the top mortgage lender to Hispanics, in 2015, we pledged $125 billion for Hispanic homebuyers through 2025. We help Hispanic business owners build credit and gain access to capital. We empower Latino youth as a partner of the Hispanic Scholarship Fund by providing more than $24 million in scholarship support since 2003. We champion our diverse team with equitable pay and career development programs. We see difference as opportunity, culture as talent, and every person as an agent for positive change. Wells Fargo remains committed to meeting the financial needs of our customers and empowering Latino wealth for generations to come.
The day the world stopped was the day we found where to go. Lost together, we discovered ourselves again. And we realized that the things that matter deserve time.
That looks good.
From now on, we're not going to leave anything on our plates. Because we've learned to savor the moments that were always there. And they never tasted this good.
Latinos are a key driver of labor force and economic growth in our country. However, in a COVID-19 world, it feels our community is under siege. According to the CDC, Latinos make up 34% of cases, almost twice the rate of our 18% share of the population, and a testament to Latinos' disproportionately high representation in the nation's essential workforce. JP Morgan Chase is committed to lead and innovate as we address the persistent and troubling issues our community faces. To date, we've given $250 million to address the public health and long-term economic challenges caused by the pandemic. And over the past 2 years, we've invested $10 million in Latinx communities across the U.S. We're also helping our customers navigate their financial needs through this crisis, such as delaying payments or increasing lines of credit for customers and small businesses struggling financially due to the coronavirus. The pressing need to expand economic inclusion may be an old problem, but its solution requires new partnerships. Business, community, and government working together is the only way to overcome the obstacles to economic inclusion. I'm Carolina Giannicelli, head of the Private Banks Law Firm and Professional Services Group at JP Morgan Chase. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue with the program, let us share the stage with our platinum sponsors from Mastercard and Wells Fargo, who power the ongoing work and evolving mission of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Hello to our esteemed audience attending the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Legislative Summit. I'm Ginger Siegel, and I have the honor of leading the small business segment for North America for Mastercard, and we are truly honored to be a part of your agenda. I hope everyone is staying safe and well during this time. Mastercard has watched how small businesses have suffered during the pandemic, but know that the 4.7 million Hispanic business owners are strong and will come out on the other side even stronger. But we also know that 32% of Hispanic businesses have closed during the pandemic, compared to an overall number of 22%. This important segment has told us that the top 3 challenges they are facing are raising capital, as well as growing and operating their business. Mastercard's mission is to connect and power an inclusive digital economy that benefits everyone, everywhere. Our focus on access to capital is evident in our $250 million commitment to help small businesses through these challenging times. Helping Hispanic business owners to become more digital is essential as consumers choose to change the way they shop and pay with a much greater focus in the online space. Through our Digital Doors program, we help businesses create an online presence, have access to education on topics such as social media marketing and how to protect themselves against cyber attacks. By providing these and other tools and solutions, we can help Hispanic businesses grow and operate their businesses more efficiently and safely now and into the future. I thank you again for allowing us to participate and hope you have a wonderful summit. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Ruben Barrales, and I'm Senior Vice President for External Engagement at Wells Fargo. So happy to join the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and Ramiro Cavazos and his incredible team for turning around this organization and making it so much stronger. We at Wells Fargo know a little bit about turning around large organizations, and you're going to see the changes at Wells Fargo manifest itself through a real focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, including the Latino community. From being the #1 bank helping Hispanic families purchase homes, to helping thousands and thousands of Latino-owned businesses through the PPP program, and organizations like USHCC and others that provide technical assistance to those Latino businesses, you're going to see Wells Fargo partnering and helping to strengthen Latino small businesses throughout the country. Looking forward to a great second day of the Legislative Summit. Thank you so much, and Wells Fargo is very proud to be a partner. Thanks.
And now, let's hear from the Pew Research Center's Director of Global Migration and Demography Research to speak on current trends and the economic power of the Hispanic consumer. Please welcome Mr. Mark Hugo Lopez.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Mark Hugo Lopez, and I'm the Director of Race and Ethnicity Research at the Pew Research Center. And I want to talk to you a little bit today about some of the work we've been doing looking at the impact of COVID-19 on Latinos nationally, but also on Latino businesses. This is something we've been tracking for the last several months, actually over a year now. We're doing more work to look to see how Latinos are doing, but I want to share with you some of our findings from some of our most recent research. So first, a little bit about the Pew Research Center. The Pew Research Center is based in Washington, D.C., and we're a nonpartisan, non-advocacy organization. We're funded by the Pew Charitable Trust, and because of our nonpartisan, non-advocacy position, we don't take any positions on policy or make any policy recommendations. But with that said, let me share with you some of our findings from this last year. First, the impact, as you know, of COVID-19 has been wide and has been deep in the Latino population, or in the Latino community. When you take a look at, for example, the share of Latinos who tell us that they've either tested positive or pretty sure that they had COVID-19, about 1/3 of Latino adults tell us that that's true about them. And when you ask about whether or not somebody they know has been sick or died because of COVID-19, about 3/4 of Latino adults tell us that's true of them. Now, these are numbers that are among the highest, if not the highest, of the largest racial and ethnic groups in the country, showing you how widespread the health impact of COVID-19 has been for Latinos. We've also asked Latinos about their jobs and about wages and how people in their households are doing. And Latino households have taken some of the biggest economic hits during the COVID-19 downturn. 58% say that somebody has either in their household lost a job, been furloughed, or taken wage loss as a result of the coronavirus outbreak, more than any other group of Americans. And this is, I think, an important point to note, is how deep and how widespread the impact economically of COVID-19 has been. We also asked Latinos about their current financial situation. And here year, many Latinos tell us that things have gotten worse. About 27% say in the last year things have worsened for them in terms of the personal financial situation. 45% say things are about the same, but notably 27% say that things have improved in the last year. This story of a mixed story about changing financial pictures as a result of COVID-19 reflects a number of things. First, that the impact of COVID-19 has been differential. It's affected different families and different households in different ways. But in addition to that, one of the other things that you see here is that Latinos also, despite high unemployment rates during the early part of the COVID-19 outbreak, many of them have been able to find other employment opportunities or to make ends meet in other ways. And so the financial situation of Latinos, while for some it worsened, for most, it's either been about the same or improved compared with a year ago. We also have found, though, that, and this is an important part when it comes to establishing a business, that many Latino savers tell us that they were saving less. So while the financial situation for many Latino households may be little changed, when it comes to talking about savers, we found that 42% said they were saving less this year compared to the past. So the impact of COVID-19 has been varied and again, widespread, but also differential in its impact on Latino households. All of this, of course, is important because it has an implication for Latino businesses. And here I want to show you some data. Now, this is data that is about a particular subset of Latino business owners. These are people who are self-employed and own their own businesses. This is not the full universe of all Latino business owners, which would include people who are part of groups or part of a team that runs a business. If you take all that into account, you get more than 4 million, for example, Latino businesses before the pandemic really started. But among those who are self-employed, the number of self-employed Latinos or Latino business owners was about 2.1 million in February of 2020. But the impact of the economic downturn was quite sharp. By April, that number had dropped to 1.4 million, but also many people found opportunities, and you started to see the number of self-employed Latinos rise over the course of several months. And by June, we were up to 1.9 million. I think what's important here to note is how, again, deep and, of course, widespread the impact of COVID-19 has been. Many small business owners lost their businesses in April or were able to establish something new in the subsequent months. Now, one other important aspect of the Latino experience in COVID-19 has been what Latinos would like to see in terms of perhaps public policy. And we've asked about whether or not Latinos favor, as well as the general public, or are opposed to a COVID-19 economic aid package. And this is particularly about the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 package that was recently passed in Congress. You can see that 70% of all U.S. adults favored it, but among Latinos, that share was 80%. So strong support for economic aid from the federal government. And this is not unusual. This is something we saw earlier during the pandemic as well. So that's a little bit about the view of what's happened with the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on Latinos. It's also interesting to note that we had a decennial census, and we were already seeing Latino population numbers reach new highs, nearly 61 million in 2019. We'll see what the 2020 census delivers from its count. But what's important about this is that the Latino population also has accounted for more than half of the nation's population growth since 2010. The nation's population would not be growing as fast as it is, and by the way, the population growth is slowing, without Latinos. And in some states, like in New Jersey and Illinois, those states would have lost population if it hadn't been for Latinos. Finally, looking forward, Latinos are a growing share are saying they want to get the COVID-19 vaccine, 70% in our most recent survey in February. And you can see that Latinos are, just like their white counterparts, about on par with their white counterparts in terms of intent to get the vaccine, even though there continue to be some disparities in the share of Latinos who actually do get the vaccine. I'm going to end there. If you want to find out more, you can visit pewresearch.org and find our work there. And of course, you can always reach out to me as well. I look forward to hearing from anybody about any questions you might have about our work, and I look forward to seeing the rest of the conference. So thank you very much.
Esteemed guests and honored colleagues, please welcome former state representative for Maryland's 3rd Congressional District, now U.S. Senator, Chairman Ben Cardin.
Hello, how are you all? It's great to be with you. Let me first thank the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for giving me this opportunity to be part of your program today. I do want to talk about the opportunities that we're going to be having in regards to the initiatives by President Biden. But first, I hope everybody's well. Thank you for your help. It's an honor to chair the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee in the Congress, and we work very closely with your chamber in expanding opportunity in America. As I know all of you are aware, the American Rescue Plan was a game changer. It was an effort to expand opportunity in America. It will have such consequences. It's one of the most significant bills I've ever worked on, and President Biden can be justifiably proud of his leadership in getting that done during the very first few weeks of his administration. Well, today, he's announcing his American Jobs Plan that will expand upon the American Rescue Plan to provide additional opportunities in our community. So I want to talk about the small business aspects because I chair the Small Business Committee. Small businesses are the growth engine of America. More new jobs created in the private sector by small business than larger companies. They provide more innovation, better ways to do things. We saw that during COVID-19 as small business owners figured out ways to survive with creative ways to provide their services and goods. That's what we rely upon for the growth of our economy, the ingenuity of small companies. And if we are going to be competitive, and what President Biden's American Jobs Plan is to make America globally competitive, so that we invest in manufacturing, so we invest in transportation infrastructure, so we invest in water infrastructure, we invest in our schools, we invest in our housing, we invest in broadband. But if we're going to make America competitive, we have to make sure that our business community is operating on all cylinders, that no one's left behind, that all communities are engaged in the growth of our economy. And when we take a look at how our tools under the small business has operated in the past, we have challenges. Let me just give you a couple examples. The largest single program available in the Small Business Administration for access to capital is the 7A program. The second largest is the 504 programs. When you take a look at the participation rates in that program, you find that although the Latino population in America represents approximately 18% of our population, they represent only 8.5% of the loans given out under the 7A program. That's unacceptable. It's even worse for women. I mean, women represent over 50% of America and only 18% of the 7A loans that are given out by the Small Business Administration. We must do better. That's not acceptable. So I am following under the inspiration of a former congressman that I knew very well. His name was Parren J. Mitchell. He represented the 7th Congressional District of Baltimore City. And he was the chair of the Small Business Committee in the House of Representatives. He retired from Congress the year I came to Congress in 1987. He was responsible for the very first set-asides of requirements under the small business laws, the 23% set aside on government procurement for small businesses, because he recognized we had to make special effort. And today we have a 23% set aside for small businesses in the government procurement and 6% for small 5% for small disadvantaged businesses. Those goals, by the way, the 23% are being met. Most of the government agencies are well beyond the 23% set aside for small businesses. That's great because the federal government's the largest single purveyor of goods and services in the world. So we're making that goal, but we're not doing as well in regards to reaching minority communities and reaching the hardest served businesses. We must do better. So we have a game plan. How are we going to improve these numbers? Well, first and foremost, let's take a look at the American Rescue Plan that I referred to earlier. One of the things that it provides is access to broadband. Broadband is an essential component to being able to get access to equal opportunity in America. And the broadband is not available in many communities in our country today, or it's not affordable in many communities in our country today. So the American Rescue Plan takes us in providing resources to the FEC, to FCC to allow for affordable access to broadband, and provides funds to our local school systems and to local governments that can be used for broadband, particularly the last mile of connection. But we need to do more. And that's why the American Jobs Plan that President Biden is announcing today will set the goal that every home in America will have access to affordable high-speed internet. That means every business will have access to affordable broadband. But we need to do more than that. And that's why we've introduced certain bills. I've introduced the Emerging Market Bill, which I think is absolutely essential, that would allow for venture capital, which is even at a lower percentage going to Latino businesses or minority businesses. We set up, under my legislation, an office for emerging markets within the SBA with special attention for providing venture capital connections to minority small businesses. It would work in conjunction with minority institutions in order to make that a reality. I've also introduced the New Start program, which would allow returning citizens to have full access to SBA tools. There's no justification whatsoever why small businesses should be discriminated against because a person is a returning citizen, paid his debt to society. Those tools should be fully available. And I've also introduced legislation that would codify and make permanent the Minority Business Development Agency, which today exists solely by an executive order. So these are some of the things that we're doing in order to strengthen opportunities for minority small businesses, Latino small businesses. But let me just go over COVID-19 for a moment. All of this existed before COVID-19. COVID-19 pointed out something we knew, that small businesses, the growth engine of America, innovation takes place there, but their resiliency to an economic downturn is not as strong as larger companies. They don't have the deep pockets. They don't have the ability to weather economic downturns with the same degree of survival as larger companies. And that's why we had to do something to make a difference to help small businesses. So when the pandemic struck over a year ago, I worked with my Republican colleagues, Senator Rubio and Senator Collins, and my Democratic colleague, Senator Shaheen, and we crafted programs that ultimately made its way into the CARES Act that set up new programs of help for small businesses. The largest by far was the Paycheck Protection Program. The philosophy of the Paycheck Protection Program was to get money out quickly to small businesses so they could survive. And it was equal to approximately 2.5 times their monthly payroll so they could keep their employees intact. Small businesses have a difficult time maintaining and recruiting workforce. This allowed them to keep their workforce intact. It allowed them to pay workers rather than those workers having to go on unemployment insurance, and gave survival to many small businesses that otherwise would not have survived. In total, in 2020, there were 5.2 million of these PPP 7A forgivable loans granted to a tune of $525 billion. And then in the end of last year, we renewed the program for a second round, recognizing that the pandemic was going longer than we had anticipated and the impact on small businesses was much greater. On the second round, we required the businesses to have economic loss in revenue in order to qualify. They had to demonstrate that loss of revenue. And in 2021, we've already given out 3.1 million PPP loans worth over $196 billion. We still have authorization remaining in excess of $80 billion in total. The total amount under the PPP program authorized is $809 billion. What an effort made in order to help small businesses. But when we first went through the program, we recognized that in order to get benefits under the PPP program, the forgivable 7A loan, you need to have a relationship with a banking institution in order to get that loan. Even though it's 100% guaranteed by the federal government, there was still a concern as to whether small businesses in traditionally underserved and underbanked communities would get help. So Senator Shaheen and I authored a provision in the CARES Act that required the SBA to make special outreach to the underserved community. It was on page 30. The Inspector General concluded that the SBA did not carry out that provision the way that Congress intended. And there was an advocacy group known as the Page 30 Coalition that fought to correct the way that SBA implemented the original PPP Act. As a result, when we replenished the funds in the PPP, we had set-asides that were directed to CDFIs, to minority depository institutions, so that we had mission lenders guaranteed a certain amount of these funds. We also set aside for small businesses, and these set-asides did help. They did get help into the more underserved communities. And when we reauthorized the second round of PPP, we further targeted the money to underserved communities. And the statistics coming in are very encouraging that we've really reached a lot more of the underserved community. We still have a way to go. So when President Biden became president on January the 20th, we worked with him. He used his executive power, and the SBA issued certain guidance. We had an exclusive period of time for PPP loans, 14 days for those companies, 20 employees or less. And during that period of time, 400,000 PPP loans were given. Approximately 200,000 were first-time borrowers. So again, we're reaching out to get the more difficult to reach small businesses in traditionally underserved communities, and it's working. I might tell you that President Biden also provided a different calculation for the self-employed, the Schedule C taxpayers, so to make it more desirable for them to take out PPP loans. He also removed the prohibitions against former incarcerated individuals, and he also helped those who had student loan challenges would still be eligible for the PPP loan. So by executive action and legislative action, we have tried to target the aid, and we have, to the minority communities, the underserved communities, the traditionally left out communities, the smaller of the small businesses, and it is working. But PPP is just one of the tools that are available. We also have the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, which has provided over $200 billion during COVID-19 to small businesses for loans equaling $3.7 billion. 3.7 million loans totaling $200 billion. I'll get my numbers right here. That's important because these are long-term, low-interest loans. So it's much larger amounts than the PPP, and it gives you working capital. We intended that to be for loans up to $2 million. The Trump administration capped it $150,000. We thought that was wrong. I was pleased to see that President Biden and the SBA has announced just this past week that they're going to increase the loans up to $500,000. That's certainly a really good step. We also provided, for the first time, advanced grants under the EIDL program of up to $10,000. That was in the CARES Act. We anticipated those grants would go to the smaller of the small businesses, those in desperate need that can't take out an additional loan. Again, more in the minority community field. The Trump administration administered that at a level lower than $10,000. We objected to that. And in the American Rescue Plan, we have put more money into this program so that those small businesses in low-income communities that have really suffered during the pandemic can get the full $10,000. And those that are suffering even more, that had a 50% reduction in their revenue, can get an additional $5,000 grant. So we've tried to improve those programs to make them work even better. In the American Rescue Plan, there are other programs that are available. We targeted restaurants. Why? Because restaurants were ordered by government to operate at lower capacities. They are really hurting. We have a $28 billion program that will provide for the revenue loss that restaurants have sustained during COVID-19. 110,000 restaurants have closed as a result of COVID-19. But for the first 21 days, This program is open for those small businesses that are in low-income communities. Again, trying to reach the underserved communities, trying to reach those who have had a more difficult time in getting this. And these are grants, so these you don't have to go through banks. These are grants. And then lastly, we developed a shuttered venue program that will allow those facilities that have had to close as a result of COVID-19, such as entertainment centers, such as museums, such as movie houses. That program will provide grants to the SBA to help them meet their revenue losses as a result of COVID-19. The good news is that that grant program will start very shortly within the next few days, and we would encourage people to take advantage of it. One last point I want to make, and that is under the American Rescue Plan, we have community navigators. Community navigators are there to help small businesses get connected to the tools that are available to help them in governmental programs and so that they can be included. This was a high priority for President Biden, and it can be contracts with nonprofits in our community. The Chamber can participate in the Community Navigator program. So we invite you to help us reach the community, to reach the small businesses that have been left out in the past, to make sure everyone is included. Let me just conclude from where I started. I'm excited about President Biden's new plan he announced today in regards to the American Jobs Plan. But the only way this is going to work is if we really reach all communities in our country. And we have to acknowledge that access to capital, access to opportunity has not been equal throughout America. And we have to make a special effort to make sure that we reach the underserved communities, that we reach the minority communities, that we reach low-income communities, that we reach the small businesses. And with your help, we'll accomplish that goal. Again, thank you for having me here. And it's been a pleasure to be part of your program. And I look forward to working with you.
Honored guests and friends, he served as Deputy Secretary of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration in the Obama administration and is now Secretary of Homeland Security. Please welcome Alejandro Mayorkas.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for the honor of inviting me to speak with all of you this morning. I want to thank Senator Cardin for being such a champion of the business community throughout our nation, and especially the Hispanic business community. I also, in enjoying this morning's program, really appreciated Janet Murguia's remarks, and I do want to recognize her as such a champion of our community, and I'm a beneficiary of her dedication to our community and to see our community advance throughout the future. As I was thinking about this important conference, I could not help but think of my upbringing and specifically my father. My father was born in Cuba, as was I. My father started his career as an owner of a small business. He began a steel wool manufacturing company in Havana, Cuba, and he loved the fact that he had the opportunity to start something, to own something, and to build something for the future. And his small company was taken away from him, and he brought us here to the United States. And by dint of circumstance and adversity in really restarting a business career here in the United States, he did not have the opportunity in his life to own something again, to start something again, but nevertheless stayed in the manufacturing world in a small business for which he worked for most of his life and worked very, very hard. And so the work of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is something that is very close to me and close to my heart. In thinking of my father's career in commerce, I also of course, think of him as a person and as a person who lost his home and regained a new one here in the United States. You know, when his wife of 43 years and my mother passed away, my father and I had dinner together every Friday and Saturday evening for over a year, quite frankly. And I remember going to a small neighborhood restaurant with him, a Cuban restaurant that I grew up at. And I noticed when he spoke English, he had one personality. And when he spoke Spanish, his native tongue, he had a very different personality. When he spoke English, he was a very serious person, almost sober. But when he spoke in his native tongue, he really became a vivacious person, funny, had a lot of expressions, a lot of Cuban expressions, a lot of Spanish expressions. And it's something that I only observed for the first time during that period of our lives together. And we were very close, but I never noticed the disparity. And so why do I think of that now as I am addressing the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce? Because I think that fundamentally when we decide what we want to accomplish, we have to think of ourselves and our identity, who we are and what we do and what we set out to do. What does that say about who we want to become? And I've spoken publicly about the Department of Homeland Security and its identity as a department of partnership. And so all of you as members of a Chamber of Commerce are a critical partner of ours. We have, of course, a very significant footprint with the business community throughout the nation and throughout the world. We promote trade and travel through a number of our agencies. We, of course, protect businesses from the threat of cyber attack. We are very steeped in the government response to COVID-19 and making sure that we bring public health to the fore so that we can restart our economy in a meaningful way. We have so much work together to accomplish. But you are not only a Chamber of Commerce, you are the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and that has profound meaning, I know, for all of you, and it has profound meaning for me. And so when I think of our identity and our shared identity, I think about more than our cyber work and the need to protect small businesses that Senator Cardin spoke so powerfully about. I think more than about the public health imperative and really getting our economy going again. I think more than about the facilitation of lawful trade and travel. I think more about the need for immigration reform and what immigrants bring to our nation in spurring our economy. I think about our traditions, our best traditions, our values. I think about diversity. I think about the need for equality of opportunity. I think about the need to promote and to advance Hispanic business, to advance Hispanic achievement, education, avenues for success. And I think about past challenges, the opportunities that we have now, and the work that I, as the Secretary of Homeland Security, can do in partnership with you to make sure that the advances that we do enjoy become only a foundation for the enduring opportunities and successes that we can achieve together in the future. So when you engage with the Department of Homeland Security in the days, the weeks, the months, and the years ahead in this Biden-Harris administration, and I know you will hear from the Vice President later in the program, I hope that the first words and thoughts that come to mind are words and thoughts about a close and strong partnership, a shared identity, the creation of new opportunities, and the advancement of our talent and skills. And so with that, let me again thank the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity that you have given me. And I really look forward to working very closely with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary Mayorkas. Our next speaker serves as the chair of the U.S. House Committee on Financial Services, representing California's 43rd District. Please welcome Congresswoman Maxine Waters.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be with you this morning. And I think just as I came on, I saw Mayorkas. Is that who was on right before me? I think so. Well, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to join you. Can you hear me? I don't think they can hear me. And I'd like to thank Romero Cavazos, President and CEO of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, for that introduction. I'm very pleased to be here for this legislative summit entitled Policy That Powers America's Hispanic Business. So I applaud the work of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in helping Latinx businesses stay afloat and recover during this pandemic storm that we've been confronted with. So as chairwoman of the House Financial Services Committee, I want you to know that access to credit and capital for minority-owned businesses is an important priority for me. Today, I'd like to discuss some of my recent work as chairwoman of the committee. In response to COVID-19 crisis, I've been working around the clock to pass legislation and encourage policy that will bring relief to those suffering the health and economic effects of the pandemic across the nation. With millions out of work, millions falling behind on rent and mortgage payments, and millions of small businesses struggling, I've been focused on making sure that individuals, families, small businesses, and communities of color specifically get the relief and protections they need from our government. It is an unfortunate fact that this pandemic and its economic effects have had a disproportionate impact on communities of color and minority-owned businesses. A recent survey of Black and Latinx women business owners by Digital Undivided found that an overwhelming majority, approximately 70%, responded that COVID-19 resulted in a revenue decrease or loss for their business. Even more of those business owners, 90%, responded that they were no longer able to pay themselves at a sustainable level. The National Bureau of Economic Research found that Latinx business owners dropped approximately 32% from February to March 2020. Additionally, a December 2020 survey by your chamber in conjunction with the National ACE and U.S. Black Chamber noted that, let me quote, 21% of Hispanic-owned businesses reported having less than a month of cash to cover operating expenses. The Trump administration's implementation of pandemic relief programs like the Paycheck Protection Program, also known as PPP, left many small businesses, especially minority-owned businesses, locked out, while big banks administering the program funneled the funds to their large business clients first. For example, according to an August 2020 report from the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative, when requesting COVID assistance in the form of PPP loans, Latinx business owners were only half as likely as their white counterparts to receive them. To put additional congressional focus on challenges accessing capital during the pandemic and beyond, we convened a financial services subcommittee on diversity and inclusion hearing entitled Access Denied, Challenges for Women and Minority-Owned Businesses, Accessing Capital and Financial Services During the Pandemic. So I thank Ms. Costello, board chair for the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, for her testimony at that hearing. Further, I'm pleased that President Biden's American Rescue Plan includes my recommendations to provide more than $75 billion in economic relief for housing and rental assistance, small business lending, and other key relief. The American Rescue Plan also includes $10 billion to renew and enhance the state small business credit initiative, a federal program designed to help provide credit and investments in small businesses through the states. $1.5 billion would also be reserved to specifically support minority-owned businesses, as well as an additional $1 billion reserved for additional funding as an incentive for states to provide robust support to minority-owned businesses. Now, this is very important. This program has been around for some time, but it was supported by the government, underfunded, and so not a lot of people knew about it, and it wouldn't have done much good anyway because the money was not there. But this president has decided that not only is he going to make it available and put more resources into it, but specifically the Latinx and African-American protected businesses will be funded additionally above and beyond other businesses. Because communities of color, including minority-owned businesses, have been systemically excluded from financial services, access to capital, basic banking services, and home ownership, racial and economic justice will continue to be a major focus this Congress for the Financial Services Committee. According to the Federal Reserve's 2017 report on availability of credit for small businesses, women and minorities, especially African Americans and Latinx, experience the highest denial rates and were the least likely to receive full funding in almost every financing category, including access to loans, credit cards, outside investors, and grants. And so the committee will remain focused on such barriers created by systemic racism in the housing and financial systems, and will be considering legislation to provide targeted investments and to remedy injustices that have resulted in the marginalization of people of color and the unconscionable wealth gap. Let me talk a little bit about diversity and inclusion, the subcommittee that I created when I took over as chair of the Financial Services Committee. The United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce embodies the need for diversity and inclusion in the business community and champions the success of minority-owned businesses, which are vital and necessary to having a thriving American economy. As one of my first official acts as the first woman and African-American chair of the House Committee on Financial Services, I created the first ever subcommittee on diversity and inclusion, chaired by my esteemed colleague from Ohio, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. This month, Chair Beatty and I sent data requests to the 41 largest U.S. asset managers for information on their diversity and inclusion policies and outcomes, including their spending with minority-owned businesses, such as the members of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber. We are continuing to hold the financial services industry accountable for diversity and inclusion, and to advance legislation that creates an economy where minority-owned businesses have greater access to capital and other financial services they so desperately need to be competitive and thrive in America and beyond. Chambers of commerce, especially those like the U.S. Hispanic Chamber that focus on minority-owned businesses, have another opportunity to assist their members by providing technical assistance in applying for federal COVID relief. The CARES Act and other stimulus funding in 2020 was provided to the Minority Business Development Agency, called MBDA. MBDA utilized its network of minority businesses, centers, and partnered with minority chambers, including the United States Hispanic Chamber, to assist minority-owned businesses in applying for PPP and other programs. For example, with funding from the CARES Act, your organization provided support to more than 6,000 Hispanic and minority-owned businesses through its 7 technical assistance centers at chambers across the country, while also hosting over 100 webinars and virtual trainings to help business owners recover during the pandemic. MBDA will be expected to look at how all affinity chambers of commerce, their current network of business development centers, and other small and minority-owned business advocates can be used to enhance and expand the technical and other assistance they provide. So let me thank you again for inviting me to join you for this event today. I'm so appreciative of the work of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you. I want to make sure that the Chamber really knows and understands the PPP program. And I want you to know that in addition to the work that I did, I want you to say a word of thanks to Nydia Velasquez, who is the chair of the Small Business Committee of Congress, who worked very closely with me. And when the big banks sent the money to their concierge clients and created portals for them and basically took advantage of the PPP program in the beginning, we had to refund it, the program, and we targeted $60 billion to the small and minority institutions so that they would have an opportunity to lend. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for the work that you guys have done in showing how important it is to have chambers of commerce across this country, giving assistance to many of our small businesses. Many had not really been involved with government before. Many were basically unbanked, and many did not trust that the government was really there to help. But you have been so helpful, and you have been so much focused on assisting, the small and minority businesses, the Hispanic-owned businesses, that I think that we can see a difference in what was happening early on when we first experienced the pandemic and what is happening now with the president's rescue plan that just got signed into law. This COVID-19 is unfortunate, but it has certainly opened up, our eyes to how much was missing in these communities and how much we needed to do in order to make sure that there is opportunities that are afforded to all Americans from, all sectors of our society. So thank you again for inviting me this morning. We still have a lot of work to do. The president is going to announce today the infrastructure program, and it may be as high as $3 trillion. I don't know the exact number, somewhere between $2 and $3 trillion. There's going to be a lot of jobs, a lot of contracts. And so I'm focused on getting our cities and our states to have the kind of response to requests for proposals that will open up the doors for participation by many who have been left out over the years because of the insiders who had the contacts, and how many of our cities just simply award the contracts over and over again because early on they have some memorandums of understanding and contractual language that allowed those who were well placed to be able to get access to these opportunities for contracting without having to go through the bid process. And so we're going to make sure that these opportunities are available. This money, it's going to be so helpful, to our cities and our communities, a lot of jobs. We're not only going to be creating jobs, for the water systems to be replaced, for the bridges to be reconstructed, and for, our highways and all of those, aspects of our society that are considered infrastructure. But I've included housing in that. And I've included housing is infrastructure. And so we're going to have a significant amount of money for the building of units, for the support of home ownership, and for the repair and reconstruction of public housing. So these opportunities are opening up. Let's take advantage of them. I know that you will be right there doing everything that you can to assist these businesses. I appreciate you, and thank you for inviting me.
And now, please welcome U.S. Congressman representing Ohio's 16th Congressional District, Anthony Gonzalez.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you to the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for allowing me to address you here briefly this morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anthony Gonzalez. I am the Congressman from Ohio's 16th District, which is in the northeast portion of the state. And it is truly an honor to be here with you today, and I am a proud Cuban American. Like many folks on this call, my family came here in search of a better life, in search of the freedoms and liberties that had been taken away in Cuba, but that flow throughout our entire beautiful country. And it is an honor to represent the 16th District, and it's an honor to be the first Hispanic member of Congress from the state of Ohio. In our state's history, we haven't had it. And our Latino community, of course, is only growing in America. And by 2050, 1 out of 3 jobs will be held by a Latino, which is an incredible stat. And as I prioritize my work in Congress, I'm on the Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee on Financial Services. I think the COVID-19 pandemic has really highlighted some of the struggles that we have as a Latino community, but also some of the struggles that exist throughout the entire country. And so, particularly prescient this time of year has been the issues that we had in the Latino community with accessing PPP loans and getting the forgiveness on the PPP loans and helping navigate that. One of my good friends back home runs a delicious Puerto Rican restaurant called Campus Grill. If you're ever in Cleveland, you should go. And I was talking to him the other day about accessing the loans and just the struggles through the pandemic. And as you can imagine, he said, "Hey, look, we're day to day now, and it's a great restaurant, and he and his wife work really hard." But it was very telling to how much work we still need to do. And another thing that the pandemic has highlighted is the lack of access to technology that many of in our community have. I saw a stat: 84% of Latinos in this country are not able to work remotely from home. Some of that is obviously because of the work itself, but also a lot of it has to do with connectivity. And so I think solving the digital divide and making sure that we're providing opportunities for all families in this country is obviously something we can never lose sight of. But my final point before I say goodbye is I just want to thank again the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and everyone on this call for taking such an interest and being such strong advocates for the Latino community in our country. We've made incredible progress. As I said, I am deeply proud of my Cuban heritage, and I wear it on my sleeve and I wear it on my heart. And we've done a lot, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And so I commend everybody on this call. I thank you for allowing me to address you all briefly, and I hope you'll reach out to our office if we can ever help with anything. So thank you, everybody. God bless.
And now, she served 2 terms as Nevada's Attorney General before becoming the first woman from Nevada and the first Latina ever to be elected to the U.S. Senate. Please welcome Senator Catherine Cortes Masto.
Oh, hello, everyone. What an honor it is to join you today. I'm so excited to be able to participate with you. I first want to thank all the organizers for putting together such a great conference, and to everyone who's making the time to join us today. As we all know, the Latino community today faces enormous challenges, from access to healthcare and housing to job training and discrimination. But we also know that these challenges were present before the pandemic, and they have only gotten worse over the last year. In my home state of Nevada and around the country, the coronavirus pandemic has had a huge impact on our hospitality workers, including the many Latinos who work in that sector. And throughout the pandemic, I have worked to get more relief to those who have lost work through no fault of their own, along with fighting for resources so we can address the disproportionate health and economic impacts of COVID-19 on communities of color and the small businesses that they own. Since last spring, when COVID first hit, we have passed 5 relief packages to help the American public, and that is a tremendous achievement. I have made it a priority, however, to get families the help they need to stay housed, keep food on the table, to expand testing, vaccine development, and now distribution, and to support the small businesses that are at the heart of our communities. But we also know there's work that still needs to be done. Some of the most affected by the pandemic have been those in our immigrant communities. Past relief legislation, unfortunately, left too many out, including undocumented families across the country who are still scared to see support and care during this crisis. That's why I've made sure that mixed status families were also eligible to receive an economic stimulus payment from the last 2 COVID aid relief packages. And we also made sure that access was available for testing and vaccines. It was free access to everyone, regardless of immigration status or English proficiency. I don't have to tell all of you, I see it in Nevada every day. Our immigrant workers have been the essential frontline workers keeping our economy going through it all. And that's why we need to ensure the economic recovery includes them. But an equitable recovery also means making sure that our small businesses have the resources that they need to keep their doors open and their employees on the payroll. Just last week, I voted to extend the Paycheck Protection program, which has been a lifeline to our small businesses I know here in Nevada and across the country. It's helping them stay afloat throughout the pandemic and the economic downturn that came with it. This extension expands access and makes it easier for the smallest businesses to get relief that they need. And it means more money for micro businesses, sole proprietorships, and women-owned and minority-owned businesses. I cannot stress that enough. The work that we have done with these COVID relief packages is to make sure that the money is getting in the hands of the businesses that are struggling right now, including those women-owned and minority-owned businesses. I'm also proud to have championed legislation like the Save Our Stages Act and our Restaurants Act that were included in the latest COVID relief packages, because by strengthening our small businesses, we're also helping the millions of workers they employ across the country. As you well know, here in Nevada, particularly in Southern Nevada, where 70% of the population is here in this state, this is a tourism, leisure, hospitality based industry, and it has been devastated by this pandemic. A majority of the workers that have been laid off or lost their jobs are Latinos. And we've got to do everything we can to make sure that all of our workers, including those in our communities, are taken care of. That's why it was important for me to ensure they had access to healthcare and fighting for COBRA, 100% support for the federal government for those who have been laid off so they can still access healthcare. It is a lot of work that still needs to be done. That's why it has been important for me to make sure these relief packages provide a long runway so that when the hospitality industry and those businesses that either are directly or indirectly impacted by this service industry, that they have an opportunity to succeed. And that's why I am so pleased to talk with all of you today. I am hopeful over the next 6 months to a year, we continue to advocate for our small businesses, our entrepreneurs, and providing the resources that they still need as we come out and turn our economy around when we beat this virus and this pandemic. But let me talk about one other thing that has been a concern of mine because of this pandemic. Even before the pandemic, we knew that many women were in the workforce, they were entrepreneurs, they were starting their own businesses, but there still weren't enough women in the workforce or even women business owners at the level that we see that men are in the community, are in operating small businesses. Listen, women are half the population. We want to make sure that they can succeed if they choose to be entrepreneurs or they want to get in the workforce, or they're single mothers and they're head of the household and they have to make sure that they have an opportunity to put food on the table and take care of their families as well. Let me just say this, as the first Latina elected to the United States, I have seen and I have watched, there are many unique challenges that we have to overcome. And I was proud to introduce a resolution last week to call out the inequities that remain for Latino women. Hispanic women have made tremendous progress as small business owners, as you all know. Since 2007, Latino-owned firms have grown at a rate of 172%, and there are now over 1.9 million of them in the US, but there's still much more work to do to support Latinas, from helping them support their families to advancing their careers. Most obviously is the significant wage gap Latinas face, and that presents an enormous challenges. Latinos have to work twice as hard to earn what a man makes in a year. And Latinas typically earn only 54 cents per every dollar by white non-Hispanic men and must work nearly 23 months to earn what men earn in 12 months. That's why I have always and will continue to support legislation like the Paycheck Fairness Act to provide Latinas with the resources and opportunities they need to succeed. But here's the other thing. As this pandemic hit, even though we were still fighting and we weren't at as equal pay, and we still had a lot of gains to make in the workforce as women and as women entrepreneurs, when the pandemic hit, my concern is we lost too many women in the workforce because they had to make the decision to either continue with that job or their business, or stay home with their children who were virtually learning online through school, or literally had no childcare support or resources to help so that they could go to work. So my concern is, through this pandemic, we have lost women in the workforce, and we're not going to catch up again and make those gains. That's why it was important in this last relief package that we did everything we can to support those families and women and business owners, to make sure that they have the resources and the support they need to support their families and their children and their education and putting food on the table, and childcare, so that women can remain in the workforce. So for the next couple of years, you will see me working on legislation, and I'm hopeful, working with all of you, that we are reaching out and talking to our women business owners, the entrepreneurs, those who want to start their business, those who are in the workforce, to give them the access to capital that they need, to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep them in the workforce. We still have gains we have to make, but we don't want to fall backward. And that is just something I want to stress with all of you. I am open to working with the Hispanic Chamber. I'm so proud of our chamber, our Hispanic Chamber here in Nevada. Peter Guzman does an incredible job as our executive director. And so I know what can be done working together, and I am here to be your partner in the United States Senate. Thank you again for the opportunity to talk with all of you, and I hope you have a very, very productive conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Chair-elect and Senior Vice President for Sales and External Affairs at Liberty Power, Mr. Nelson Rainier, Jr. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Chair-elect and Senior Vice President for Sales and External Affairs at Liberty Power, Mr. Nelson Rainier, Jr.
Thank you, Senator Cortes Masto. As one of 6 Hispanic senators in the US, the most we've ever had in our history. It was fantastic to hear firsthand your commitment to our community. And as a Latina senator, your presence in Congress speaks volumes to your personal strength as a leader. Thank you again for your longstanding support of Hispanic-owned businesses. As a proud Cuban American and one who came to this country as an immigrant with only his mother and 2 younger brothers, I'm especially grateful to Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas and his leadership of our Department of Homeland Security. My name is Nelson Rainier, and I'm honored to serve as chair-elect of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. I also serve as Senior Vice President for Liberty Power, one of the few national energy companies that is minority-owned. Shout out to our peeps at Liberty Power. As such, I have seen and had experience firsthand scaling a startup into one of the largest Hispanic-owned companies in our country. And as such, I see the challenges that Hispanic businesses face today, but I also know how rewarding running a small business can be and scaling it. That's why I want to highlight our commitment to our HBE, Hispanic Business Enterprises. The USHCC will continue to work with policymakers and legislators to ensure that we have a seat at the table as policies and programs are designed and implemented. We will also partner with, as well as hold accountable, corporate America and their commitments to the Hispanic community. Corporate America has a tremendous capacity to respond to the current demands for change and recovery. And as we have seen countless positive examples of corporations, starting with our corporate partners, the programs and the support for our community. At the same time, we still have miles to go, and the USHCC is committed to ensuring that our voices are heard and our issues are addressed. At the USHCC, we appreciate the priority the Biden-Harris administration has placed on equity and the openness that this administration has shown us. And no one exemplifies the power of positive change, the kind we strive for at the Chamber, more than Kamala Harris, our Vice President. From ensuring equitable access to vaccines to forming the most diverse cabinet in presidential history, our Vice President's leadership has been made clear. As a former Senator and Attorney General from California, she brings with her a long history of engagement and support for the Hispanic business community. So on behalf of the USHCC Board of Directors and our team, our Hispanic chambers, and our corporate sponsors, it is an honor and a privilege to welcome the 49th Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
I'm honored to join your legislative summit, and thank you to Ramiro Cavazos and the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for all you do in your roles of leadership. I often say that business leaders are among our most passionate civic leaders, community leaders, and role models. It is you who sponsor local softball teams. You create jobs in your neighborhoods, whether your businesses are small, large, or in between. Whether your industry is construction, food services, or childcare, Latino-owned businesses are the fabric of communities across our country. Thank you. This past year, it's been difficult, both for your bottom line and for your peace of mind. 1 in 4 small businesses have closed, thousands owned by Latinos. These numbers reinforce what we already know. The situation is urgent. When the President and I were preparing to take office, he promised that help is on its way. Well, now help is here. The American Rescue Plan provides over $60 billion for our nation's small businesses. We're investing $28 billion in grants for restaurants and bars, which make up about 1 in 7 Latino-owned businesses. We're putting $15 billion toward a flexible grant program for small businesses that were hardest hit by the pandemic. And we're giving Paycheck Protection program more than $7 billion so that mom and pop shops can get help navigating the system. The American Rescue Plan lays the groundwork for the work ahead, including the work to strengthen community development financial institutions and minority depository institutions. One of the last things I did in the Senate was work to secure an additional $12 billion for CDFIs and MDIs. And now I am working with Secretary Janet Yellen to build on that progress. And you know, this is about more than getting us through this pandemic. It's about making sure that the businesses you run have equal access to capital. I recently met with Lorena Cantorvisi, the owner of Maria Empanada, a small business in Denver, Colorado. She started out small, making empanadas for her friends and family from her kitchen at home. Demand grew, and soon she saved enough to buy her first commercial oven. Later, when she was ready to expand, she tried getting a loan from a bank. Well, the banks told her she wasn't, in their words, bankable. But that didn't stop her. Today, she has expanded to 3 locations. Small business owners and minority business owners deserve access to capital. They deserve a fair shot. President Joe Biden and I are working to ensure Lorena and your members have the resources they need to build their businesses. And I look forward to working with all of you to get that job done. Thank you.